Hey, what's up? John Sonmez here from simpleprogrammer.com. So I got a question to comment on one of my videos that basically asked me, oh, by the way, I'm in Rome, Italy. Yes, I am. So anyway, I got this question that basically was along the lines of, I want to drop out of college. How can I, any advice or tips on how I can convince my parents to continue to fund my education and allow me to drop out of university? And I thought that was kind of an interesting question, right? I'm not a huge fan of traditional education, of institutionalized education, as I like to call it. But I've talked about several times on not dropping out, or why you shouldn't drop out. Of course, there's definitely reasons why you should as well. But in this case, I do have some advice on this subject matter. So here's the thing. Here's what I would say here, okay? Be a man up, and pay your own way, okay? So here's the thing. If you have your parents paying for your education, that's cool. That's fine. Nothing horribly wrong with that. I mean, it makes sense if you've got an advantage in life. It makes sense to utilize that advantage. But they get to dictate what you do with that money. So if you're going to let someone put their hooks in you, in a way, I mean, it's your parents. It's not quite the same thing. But in a way, they're getting their hooks in you. You're accepting, if you accept something from someone, some charity, a gift, some money, let them pay for you, let them do something for you, in a way, you're giving away some of your freedom. You're basically trading something, right? They're expecting something in return from you, or they expect some amount of control over your life and your decisions. And so that's what you're exchanging or trading in that case. So anyway, like I was saying, if you're going to let someone pay for you or something like that, if you're going to accept a gift from someone, you always got to remember that in exchange, they're going to have some amount of control or some say in what you do with the money, what you do with the thing in your life. And so you want to think really carefully if you want to give that up. So in the case of, let's say, college here, paying for your education, if they're paying for it, they get to decide how that money's spent, and they get to hold you accountable, and they get to say, you need to have such and such good grades, and you need to do this, right? Because you're accepting that. You don't have to accept that. So my answer to you, because this will be a fairly short video, but my advice would be that you either do what they're telling you to do with the money if you want them to fund your education, or you pay your own way. You figure out your way. If you're gonna drop out of university and you're gonna do your own thing, that's cool, that's fine. You can totally do that, but be responsible for it. Don't think that you have to have your parents pay for you, or that they have to pay for your education, and try to get them to do that. And just understand, I mean, I think, the reason why I'm doing this video is because from that comment, it appears that you don't seem to grasp this concept that if someone pays something for you, if you accept a gift from someone, it's never free. There's always strings attached to everything. Even when it comes to your parents, even when it comes from your friend, they're always expecting something of you, all right? There's very few things in life that are they're free. There's no such thing as a free lunch, right? Every time that you accept something. So even when something seems like it doesn't have any strings attached, even when someone is trying to be generous, I'd be really careful with accepting any kind of charity in life at all, any kind of help, anything that you didn't earn yourself, because there's always going to be some kind of obligation or strings attached. But I've done these videos on external dependencies. I think there's one also on obligations and how you shouldn't obligate people, and you shouldn't allow yourself to be obligated in life. And this is one of the keys. If you start accepting money, if you start accepting gifts, if you accept someone paying your way for something, you're going to be obligated. It's just guaranteed. So bar none, decision that you have to make is one. First of all, you got to decide, am I willing to be obligated? Is it worth it? Now, in some cases, it's worth it. Some cases, it may be worth, right, paying the price of giving up a little bit of your freedom in order to have an advantage later in life, right? I mean, it's sort of one of those, I'll ask you for a favor later, right? As a mafia guy would say, right? So, I'll do a favor for you today, and someday I'll ask you for a favor. Always remember that's the case. So one, you got to make that decision whether it's worth it. And there are cases where it's worth it. There's cases where I would accept something from someone, but I know the cost. I know there's strings attached. I know that I'm going to be paying for this. I never expect that I'm getting it for free. I always expect that I'm giving up some kind of freedom, or that there's something in exchange in return, right? That I'm eventually going to have to pay this back or earn this thing. Never think that it's a totally free lunch, because there's not. So that's number one, is you got to decide that, and that's going to influence whether you even allow them to continue to pay for your university. That may be something that right now, think about how much control and power they have in your life. The fact that because they're paying for this thing, they can basically say, hey, look, you got to keep going. You better not drop out. Let me see your grades. Yeah, you can't do this, right? They're having a lot of control over your life at this point, and just the fact that you think you need to get their permission in order to do this, okay? So that's the first decision. Then the second decision you want to make is whether or not it's really worth it for you to continue university education or not. And if it's not, then go ahead and make that decision, and don't expect anyone else, right? I mean, maybe you can try, and it doesn't make sense in my mind for you to try and convince your parents to continue to pay for your education if it's not a big ticket like university. If you're going to learn on your own, I mean, maybe if it's something like coding bootcamp, you can check out my opinion on coding bootcamps here. Then maybe that makes some sense to do that. But for the most part, I would, if I were you, if you're not going to do university, I would just pay your own way, right? I mean, that makes a lot more sense than having someone else have some hooks in your life and getting to tell you, what you're supposed to be doing. So, all right, that's it. That's all I got for you today. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure you click the subscribe button below. Click the bell so you don't miss any videos. I'll talk to you next time. Take care.